Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to grecochess, the YouTube channel of chess. We are facing the chess.com bots. If you've seen the previous videos, we're currently facing the bots rated 1800. We eliminated two of them, and time now to face the last one, Julia. And when I say eliminated, I mean that eventually we're able to win each one of them twice, once when I had the white pieces and once when I had the black pieces, although there were quite a few defeats in the meantime. Julia from the Netherlands, when I was having the white pieces, I lost twice before defeating her on the third attempt, and now it's my time to face her having the black pieces. But let's share first the screen with you. As you see here, there are 20 advanced bots, 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 2. We have eliminated 11 out of these 12, out of these 20, and now it's time for the bot number 12, which is Julia. And Julia, we were eventually able to defeat her when I had the white pieces, although it took me 3 attempts. I lost the first 2 times. And now now I'm trying to defeat her while having the black pieces. Julia has the white. Julia is telling us hello. When white against me, please play d4. Well, when I was having the white, I was playing the e4, but now Julia has the white pieces, so this request makes no sense. But let's have Julia start the game. Julia starts with f4, the bird's opening, as you see here. It's not very popular, but it's playable. It has some surprise value. And of course, I cannot play my e-pawn because Julia will take it. I'll play with my d-pawn going to d5. It's called the Dutch variation. Pawn to d4. So Julia can start with the d and d. I have pawns. How should I play? I cannot push my e-pawn. It's going to be taken very easily. If I take the c, it can also be taken, but then I can push my e-pawn. And I make sure that Julia doesn't have a pawn on the central square d4. I place my pawn on c5. I want my bishop to get out of here. The moment I push my pawn, I cannot push to e5. I push to e6, I block my bishop on c8. So I'm going to push my bishop on f5. Is it safe? Can Julia attack it? I don't think so easily. My pawn goes to e6, protects the pawn on c5. Queen! Queen goes to e2. Not a good idea to start with the queen first. I can check with my queen on h4, but then pawn goes to g3, and there is a so what. Let's develop my knight on f6. Knight goes to f3 for Julia. I want to occupy the center and control the 4 central squares, and I'm going to show them which one they are. E4, d4, d5, e5, as much as possible. Knight goes to c6. Queen goes to b5 and attacks the pawn on b7. I don't like the queen there. If I place my queen on c7, pawn can take here. I have another catch. If Julia is not careful, the pawn on c2 is lost. Can I take it now? If I take it now, I lose a pawn on b7 and the knight on c6 under attack. Not take it now. Queen to c7. Julia takes his pawn, and I'm going to take the pawn on c2. Yes. Queen goes back, attacks my bishop. Of course, I have to defend my bishop. And let's send my bishop where? Maybe g6 is a better square. And I'm attacking again. What if I send my pawn to a6? The queen is under attack and can go where? Not too many squares. He has to go either back to b3 or d3, e2. Where else can the queen go? Any chance that Julia can threaten my own queen? I don't think so. Pawn to a6. Julia wants exchange. She has a pawn on b6 that is weak, but I'm not careful. But I'm should exchange queens. If I don't, I'm in danger. So let's exchange the queens. And let me attack now. How to attack it? If I can get rid of this pawn, I'm a pawn ahead. I have a good position. If I don't get rid of it and Julia takes my b7 pawn, I'm in danger. Can I place my knight on b4 and threaten a fork on c2? If I put my knight on d7, I attack the pawn on b6. Okay, let's do this for now. Will Julia defend it? And if so, how? Doesn't seem so. I mean, she could defend it with a knight going to a4, but don't like the knight to be in the edge. So I'm going to win the pawn. Any danger for me? Not that I can see. I win the pawn. Good. What else can I do? I want to, now my pawn ahead, I want to develop as much as possible. My bishop on f8 is not developed yet. Let's send it to b4 and attack the knight on c3 and create the isolated pawn, if allowed. Yes, I'm going to create a weakness on c3. What else can I do? Oh, but Julia has the two bishops. Let's say castle for now. Then I'll try to see if I can attack the c3 pawn. My knight goes to a4, attacks both the bishop on b2 and the pawns on c3. Okay, let's take the bishop. So Julia doesn't have the two bishops any longer. But now my b7 pawn is under attack. How can I defend it? If I send the pawn to b5, my knight on c6 will be in danger, but it's not attacked. So let's send the pawn to b5. Let's exchange the knight. Since my knight is undefended on c6, why not exchange it with a knight on d4 and I'm ahead the pawn. Let's control the open c file. Rook goes to c8. Can I exchange rooks? First of all, let's get rid of the back rank issue. Pawn to h6. I don't want to have any back rank problems. Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, I'm going to... You see where is the danger? If my pawn for any reason here disappears, then my rook here is in danger. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to change the rooks. I'm my pawn ahead with this check. Course rook goes here. Can I change the bishops? I'll have double pawns, e4 and e6. I don't like that. What would happen if I put my rook here? Julia is going to place a rook on d2 and attack my bishop twice. So that I cannot afford. I'm going to place my bishop here on d3, hoping to put it later on c4 and block the rook. A little bit too late. The rook made it. But I'm blocking the rook. Oh, bishop attacks the pawn on f7. I'm going to stop it by sending my pawn to g6. What I'd like to do is exchange the rooks if possible. Not so easy. I'll send my rook to b8. At least it's not in the diagonal of the f3 bishop. And then I'll start pushing the b pawn if possible. Yes, and now my bishop controls the square. Good, I'm passing. Let me change the bishops. And I have the wonderful a pawn. King needs to go to f1, otherwise I can win the g and h pawn and let Julia take my a pawn. Okay, good. Let's start pushing the a pawn as much as possible. I have an extra pawn, and it's not just an extra pawn, it is the a pawn. What I don't want Julia to do is hide the king somewhere. Can I push the pawn to a5 to h5 so Julia cannot go to g4? Exchange here. Send pawn to a3. Do I win a second pawn? It seems so. Double pawns, but a second pawn is a second pawn. If I check from f2, king goes to g3. Let's push the pawn for promotion. And now if the rook leaves a7 without a check, I'm promoting. That's why I don't need, I'm not concerned if Julia takes the f7 pawn without a check. If Julia takes my f pawn, I'm going to check and then promote. Oh, for Julia had to take my pawn with a check. And then I'm promoting. Let's double check. Rook will go from a1 to e1 check. And no matter how Julia replies, my pawn will go from a2 to a1 queen. At most, Julia can take the pawn and lose her rook. It can take the new queen that isn't lose the rook. I have a queen, and I have an extra rook. And worst comes to worst, I'm going to put check from e1 if necessary and win the pawn. Even if I lose my rook, my f pawn will promote. Yes, let's control it. I got another queen. Julia will not even be able to make a queen. Okay, I'm going to win the pawn now. King goes to c7. Make sure no stalemate. Okay, now it's made one more move. And just like the previous bot, Wally from Scotland, if I remember correctly, we had tough time winning when I had the white pieces, but with the black, I won the first time. I thought the f-pawn was going to win that one for me. Well played. Well, let's see how the game went. And I think it came down to just winning extra pawn and having an advantage. But let's see what the review. What does the computer think about the game? Prevents motivate you, go for it, said Anand, but myself, I play for the fun, I don't play for the revenge. I have nothing personal against any of the players. How did we do? 73.9 for Julia, 77.4% for me. And we played not very well. 1600 for Julia, whose nominal rating is 1800, 1800 for me. And how did we do the various categories? I had three great moves, book one each of us. Best 27 versus 23 for Julia, excellent 17 versus 11 for me, seven good moves each of us. Inaccuracy, six for Julia, one for me. Mistakes, four for Julia, five for me. Three misses for me, one for Julia, and three blunders for Julia. We're going to go that since there's only one game, move by move to see what happened. But I'm glad that the bots are over. The 1800 bots are over, so okay, let's see. This is a bird's opening book move. And the the artificial intelligence code says bird's opening is an offbeat opening that starts with disadvantage, creating weaknesses for white, but trying to quickly attack the center and black sting. Yes, sometimes you can surprise your opponent with that. It's not the best, but you don't lose just because of that. You see here, I have 0.32 advantage already. Pawn to d5, the last book move. Why? d4 is not a book move. But not bad. You just place a pawn in the center. 0.54 for Julia. Pawn to c5. Computer wants my bishop to go to a5. Ideal. Knight to c3. Bishop to f5. Knight goes to f5. Now computer wants my knight to go to c6. Pawn to e3. Pawn to e6. Until here we're doing at least good moves. And this is inaccuracy. Yes, taking the queen early is not a good idea. With the queen out so early, maybe you can develop with tempo. Maybe or maybe not. And my knight to c6. So until now, 5 moves have been completed. I have done at least excellent moves. I'm ahead by 138. Let's continue. Knight to f3, development. Knight to c6, the best. Queen to b5 is a blunder. I'm not sure why. Did I take advantage of that? I see my pawn on q7 on b7 being under attack. I didn't think it was a blunder. Yes, it's not a good idea to move your queen early, but watch the play? Pawn to a6. Yes, but then queen takes b7, attacks knight on c6 that is unprotected. I don't think it was a good idea. So according to the computer from 366 ahead, because if I play the pawn, let's take of it. Julian takes here, attacks the knight on c6. I have to find somewhere to protect the knight. I cannot put my queen anywhere other than this rank because my rook is also under danger. If perhaps we could exchange queens. Clearly cannot attack the queen with the rook because the rook is defended but the knight is not. So I don't think what I played was a bad idea. And now let's see how game continues. Pawn to c5 for free, but I also took pawn for free. And Julia loses a pawn at the center. While myself, I didn't have to compromise my central pawn structure. Queen goes back. Bishop to g6, the best move. I was thinking between f5 and g6. g6 a little bit better. Don't have to worry about the pawn going to e4 and attacking it. Queen again to b5. Pawn to a6. Computer wants the knight to go down. But my idea is first I'm going to kick the queen back and then my knight to d7 will win the pawn. I'm not sure what more would they achieve with the knight going to... Oh yes, I would have pinned the knight on c6. Finish 10 moves. What's the score? I'm ahead by 2.26. Queen to b6. We exchange. Computer wants my queen to c8. I don't want the enemy queen so near me. And now knight to d7 attacks the pawn. Bishop to e2. Yes, computer wants the knight to go to a4. That's what I was afraid, because on a4, it's going to defend the pawn on b6. And I cannot take it. But you have a knight in the edge of the board. Not the best of ideas. So I win the pawn. Good. I'm ahead now by +1 material. From now on, I'm ahead in material. 2 and king to f2. White decides not to castle. Computer thinks the best move. My bishop goes to b4. Computer wants me to send it to e7. Pawn attacks, and I take it. I guess I give Julia the 2 bishops, and also the bishop on c1 can go to b2, but now the c3 pawn is a weakness, and so will be the a3 pawn. 15 moves have finished. I'm ahead by 2.12. Yes. Castling. Just good. Bishop to b2. My knight goes to a4. Yes, I'm going to win either the pawn c3 or the bishop. Of course, not a good idea. I want to win the 2 bishop advantage, and Julia has 2 pawn weaknesses, a3, c3. Isolated pawns can only be protected by other pieces. There is no dark-colored bishop to protect them, so only the knight can protect them, basically. There may be the rooks, but they'll be in a tough position. Pawn to b5, not a good idea. Wants my knight to go to a5. But then only the knight protects the b7. If the knight is attacked, then also the pawn is lost. Knight to d4. And I take it. The best move, I'm ahead by 133. Small margin, but I'm still ahead after 20 moves. Yes, I get the open file. Pawn to h6 to avoid possibilities of back ranks. Now that I'm free, bishop to f3. And I want to exchange that I'm ahead, but computer doesn't like it. From 1, 2 to 24, I'm now only 1.06 ahead. As I mentioned before, a couple of days ago, a YouTube streamer said, of course, jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, as I say, that a strategy is sacrifice your pieces in the opening so you don't blunder them later. So, but my strategy is exchange the pieces early so you don't blunder them later, especially if you're ahead to reach a winning ending. Knight attacks a bishop. Bishop goes to d3, the best move, because I want later to place on c4 and block the rook. So the rook is now or never, and now goes to c7. But before it goes, let's see. I'm ahead by 1.04. Of course, rook, that's what I would have done. Why does the computer think it's only good? Our computer wants it to c5. But on c5, I can easily send my king to the d file, my rook to c8, exchange rooks, and then go for the c5 pawn. Even though it's passed, it cannot be sustained. My bishop blocks. Bishop to h5. Attacks the pawn on f7. If I'm not careful, I lose a pawn, and not only that, if bishop takes the check, think about it, then bishop can also take the next pawn, attacks this one, and if I'm not careful, I can be in a very bad shape. Instead, I send my pawn to g6. Bishop goes back, of course, saves themselves. Rook goes to b8. Why? Because I have a plan of pushing the b pawn. Computer wants the a pawn to be pushed. Rook goes to e7, pawn goes to b5, and we start the heroic march of the b pawn. Can it promote? Rook takes to b4, not the b pawn is lost, but the a pawn now is a passed pawn. 30 moves fast. What is the score? I'm ahead by only 0.79. Very small margin. And let's see what happens later. Bishop go to e2. It's a blunder. And it's a blunder. Yeah, you didn't take advantage. Now that I see it, of course, now that I see the two question marks, blunder, I know what I should have done. Rook goes to b2 and the bishop is lost. Instead, I wanted to exchange. I missed my chance. Still, I'm ahead. Rook goes to a2. Great, of course. Support the a pawn. See if it can be promoted. Continue the pawn. H pawn. Why? I want to not allow the king to go to g4. The problem with my rook being on a2 and later on a1 is that it blocks the a pawn from promotion. So one way to do it is use my a rook to check the king. But if the king hides somewhere here, it's not going to be easy to check. That's why I'm blocking the route that's going through g4. Still, the king can go g3, h4, but we'll think about it later. Pawn to g4. I'm not sure how good it is to exchange pawns. The king not so easy to hide. Pawn to e3. Pawn to here. We exchange. Computer wants to exchange the other way around, but I want the e6 pawn to protect d5. I win the pawn. I'm now 2 pawns ahead. Yes, including one that's very near promotion. But the computer thinks the game is even, 0.00. Doesn't look like that. With 2 extra pawns and 1 near promotion, I'm not sure why the computer thinks even, because once I put my rook on a1 and the pawn on a2, the white rook cannot leave the a file unless it check me. And this is a very heavy constraint. Into a4, rook to a1, here, pawn to a2, yes. King takes to d5, yes. King to g7. And now king goes to e5, things a mistake. So from being almost even, I'm ahead by only 0.04, now I'm ahead by 372. I'm saving the pawn with king going to g6, but the computer doesn't like it, thinks I missed a chance. Instead, the computer wants a pawn to go to f4, yes, because even if I lose it, the white king is exposed. All I need is with my rook to check the king. And this is a miss. Pawn, yes, that's a great move because I do a little bit one move later what I should have done before. The only move that you found, it says the coach, this is an ambitious pawn move that activates your position. Yes, I plays exactly with this thought that no matter how white takes a pawn, my pawn f4, whether they are with a pawn on e3 or the king on e5, my rook will go either to e1 or f1 check and the pawn promotes. And if white ignores it, for example, if I place a king to d6, then my pawn goes for promotion. My f pawn. Rook to e3 check postpones the. Yes, that was a big mistake on my side, and I explain why. Because I didn't worry with the pawn taking pawn if it was not with a check, but now with a check, if white takes it, my position becomes very difficult. But I got lucky. Let's see how is the position after 45 moves. I'm ahead by 398. And after this move, if anyone, Julia's ahead by 0.04. And that is a blunder because Julia missed the chance to take the pawn. That doesn't necessarily give her the game, but at least wins one of my pawns without worrying about me promoting. And now I win the pawn. Yes, now I'm 638 ahead. He takes it, check. Yes, the best move. Promote. Now the game is winning, 662. I'm 50 moves. I'm ahead by 6.62. Julia may or may not promote the d pawn, but even if Julia promotes it, my rook will go to d1 check and will win it. I have to be careful. The pawn should not promote with the check. My king is on g5. If I allow to promote with my king on g5, promotes the check. But if my king is not in this not in attacked by the pawn, then the new queen that is, then my rook will go to d1 check, and with the skewer win the pawn. I had to be careful. I didn't think of it during the game. Yes, I'm behind the pawn. My pawn goes to f3, yes. And now we're in the mating category. Mating 7 moves is the computer. And how many did I need? From 54 until 66 moves, yes. Now let's see how things go. Mating 6 moves, mating 5 moves, mating 4, mating 3, mating 2, still mating 2, mating 3 now, mating 2, mating 1, and that's it. So that's it with Julia. Still, the ending had some weaknesses from both sides, some big mistakes, but I got lucky in the end. Uh, and let's see how the case is going the bots. We eliminated Julia. That is the last of the 1800 rated bots. The next one are the 1900. Let's see how well we do. We have Miguel from Brazil is the first, Xavier from Spain the second, and Olga from the Ukraine the third. These are the three 1900 bots, and let's see how we'll do. Things become tougher and tougher because, as I've said, even after my recent successes, my United States Chess Federation rating is 1706. So it's going to be difficult. I had a tough time with 1800. Imagine the 1900. In the meantime, what's the next? This evening, I'm starting the next Queen's Chess Club tournament, my first round. Next week, I'm playing in Atlantic City. There are many games I'm going to show from them that will interrupt the bots. But let's place Miguel. And 3 crowns if you win with no help. I've never used any help. And 2 crowns if you use 1 to 3 hints or undos. And 1 crown if you use more help. Yes, I won quite a lot of crowns and never used any help, although I had some losses until I won. Miguel with white piece is going to be the next one. Let's plan it from now. Once again, thanks for watching. Thanks to all the viewers, to the subscribers, to the likes and to the comments. If you want to leave in the comments, how have you been able to do against the bots? This is the Greco Chess YouTube channel. I'm your host, Harry Lasaniziris. Ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.